feel like you were loved. What'd you say?
I've just put record on.
Oh, okay.
Catch that little bit.
I was just sharing how this, leading into this birthday that I'm just experiencing, that this is the first year in many years that I felt happy and glad to be completing my, my sun cycle back to another year, because it has been just, I have had hellaciously depressed month up into my birthday. And discussing ego, I would say that for me, there's probably no greater example of where my ego at my darkest side, which is now splashing coffee around my desk. Thank you. I appreciate it. Where my ego at my darkest side is not just like, there's not enough in the world. There's not enough attention in the world. There are not enough cakes or people or anything else. Of course, therefore, no one did anything for my birthday because I was so, and if people did do things for my birthday, I couldn't even hardly notice it. It was so lost. But just lately, when I get in touch with that, knowing that there's not enough in the world that would feed that particular hole, it's like, oh, okay, well, how much really do I need to feed that particular hole in my psyche? So anyway, that's just a silly thing about birthdays, that it's I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here with all of you.
When was it your birthday, Deborah? Is it today? Today?
It is.
Today.
It is.
It is. Oh, wow. Absolutely wonderful. Happy birthday.
Thank you. And being with you all and being in preparation of this has made a big difference for me too. I feel loved and connected, and it makes a big difference in my life. I do still live as an ego.
I'll spare you my singing.
Oh, no, please.
Well, I was going to
your voice, you have an angel voice.
Not when I sing.
Oh.
Shall we sing happy birthday?
Yes.
But I'm happy to sing. So shall I just say after 3? 1, 2, 3. Happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday, dear Debra.
Angel.
Happy birthday to you.
Man, you see, you let it go and you get happy birthday from the angels. How good is that?
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody to Flowing in the Spiritual Cafe. Welcome Lisa and Saxon and Debra. Debra, the birthday angel today. And April hasn't arrived yet. Maybe she'll be popping in later. The topic today is the spiritual ego and how that shows up in our life or doesn't show up in our life, and where we're at with it and what it means to each of us. And so if anyone wants to just come in with that. I was thinking about it earlier, and I've thought about it through the day, and it's been very, very, very at the forefront of my mind this last few months, and particularly since September, when a relationship of mine ended. And then my life changed completely again. I moved house, and then I had to sort of start again with my business and have a look at myself. And this is where I came to with this. What I was shown is that if I looked out and I blamed the circumstances, and I blamed the lack of say finances I had at the time, and I blamed people that got involved in the drama of it all, and I even blamed myself, then really I was getting into the ego and going out there. So what I did was I could see that this was another opportunity for me to fine-tune myself and come from the heart. And what would love do? And for me, this is how I present myself with the spiritual ego. I watch her And I call her her because I built a relationship with my ego, rather than trying to blame or get angry or push away. And some of that does come in, because in my life, the spiritual ego has been running the show at times. And then I took a look at her, and I really realized what she was doing. And I can see that my spiritual ego developed from a fear from when I was a very small child. Now, this is my spiritual ego. And then, of course, it built and it built and it built until it was invisible to me, until I went out there in life and things happened in my life. And I could either say that these things happen. Things do happen. I'm not saying things don't happen. But certain patterns in my life kept coming up and repeating. And it's those patterns that were the measurement for me to have a look at myself and think, what's going on here? And I really realized that the spiritual ego was actually very cleverly designed specifically for me, to keep me from dropping into the heart and being more authentic and more humble about how I approached spirituality in my life. I don't know if this is making any sense, but it's just what I've come to. And for me, I can see how the spiritual ego has presented to me in my life. And that has been quite often through arrogance. Now, the gift and the other side to that is humility. So I know, and a measurement for me, because I slip into it, because it becomes quite, as we fine tune, it's very subtle. And there's little things that my body shows and tells me, and then I know that I'm stepping into that spiritual ego. I present myself, of this all-knowing, angelic being. And I am a knowledgeable, educated, and experienced person that has developed and fine-tuned the gift to channel the angels. It's when I come from the heart and I share this gift from humility that my true self is revealed, rather than when I'm telling somebody else or a group something. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop there. For me, it's rather a flowing and a sharing and trusting that divine is working through me and showing up, rather than sitting on my pedestal and teaching and telling. That's the spiritual ego, or some of it, for me. It's a huge, huge topic. So, girls, please come in and share what you think.
Okay, for me, it's, I think when you talk with angels, in my own experience working with the seraphim, I feel loved beyond the capacity I have to love myself or anyone else. And I'm certainly in wonder and awe. So it's impossible for me to be anything but humbled and filled with gratitude. And to have this experience of being a spiritual teacher is just amazing. The feelings of arrogance and being superior, because you think you're more involved, are superfluous in the face of this love of the great divine. But I think that I don't really understand the ego, because people talk about, I don't really understand what this means, because people talk about it as if it's something to condemn, and it isn't. It's who we are, and we need it. We need this part of us because we're human. And we're not just spiritual, we're both. We're human and spiritual. So we need to have this to keep us safe, to react, to think, to use our minds. So we have to kind of bring the two together. This thing that's called the ego, which can be seen as pride and arrogance and superiority. And there are, unfortunately, some people out there who do teach in this way. And it's a personal pet hate of mine that that there are people like that, because we have this great honor to be able to pass to somebody else something that we know, but it all comes through our mind. So it's all filtered through our own personality and our own ego, which I don't really understand, but I'm sure you will enlighten me no end today. And therefore, if somebody is this great guru that people are following, he's still human. He's still got all the human frailties, and the information that he's getting is coming through his own perception. So that's sometimes if you follow somebody without looking or questioning, it doesn't work for you, because it's not who you are. It's not your journey and your life. So I think the most important thing is to go on a spiritual journey, to listen and to read and to understand as much as you can, but pick out from it what you need more than anything else. Because if it doesn't resonate with you, then you shouldn't agree to it. And we're on a journey too. So we find one guru, we think they're wonderful, and then we move on from that and find something else. So I don't know if that's really on subject, but that's kind of, I find that when you, and I'm sure you will agree that when you work with angels, humility is natural. It isn't. You can get in this space to think I'm great, but we are all great, but everybody can do what we do, but not in the way we do it. So it's because of our individuality that we connect in it with angels or whatever we're doing, or healing in a certain way that makes us special, but it doesn't make us more special than anybody else. I think that's my stance on it.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. I resonate with everything you say there, Saxon. Yeah.
I think Saxon brings up a really good point in that our egos are an important part of ourself, and that they are designed for that survival instinct, and we need them in order to I love this one quote from I love David Hawkins does a lot of work with the ego and realizing that it is an important part of ourself. And he says, while the ego self routinely takes credit for survival, its true source is in the presence of divinity as self. It's only because the self that the ego is capable of being self-sustaining. It is just a recipient of life energy and not its origin, as it believes. The ego is the main hero in the inner movie of one's life. And I love that because it is an important part of who we are. And to Saxon's point, there's so much out there about get rid of the ego. Don't focus upon the ego, when it's really a core of who we are, our personalities, our self-sustaining selves. And so it's how to I think, and Akushi, you said it beautifully. It's how to balance it with the heart, and to bring in more of the heart as the lead, and let the ego take a back seat. I always say the heart's my driver, the ego's in the back seat taking a ride. Because that's how I want to live my life. And when we get into spiritual ego, I think it's like with anything. It can be any type of ego that gets inflated because the ego starts to come forward to drive the car. Okay, and so that's where we start to recognize that the ego is taking more control than what we actually, I always say what I should allow it to do. But boy, I sure do depend on it for certain things. So it's, I think and it is part of being human. Okay, so I'm getting more and more downloads from the angels and my guides about the importance of recognizing being human and what this human experience here on earth in this lifetime entails. So it's fascinating to be here and get these beautiful lessons from Divine and understand more and more. What they've been downloading lately is coming into a stabilization and an equilibrium. And here we are, we're in the spiritual cafe flow, and to bring in that flow from Divine within, and then being a human here on earth below. So I think it's a pretty exciting time, but I love that what both of you have contributed so far, because it is an important part of our being, and we can't just shut it off or get rid of it. It's here.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I do, when I find my mind's racing, when my ego's getting in the way, you know, if I've got something to present or something to do, and it's really in service of love, and it's in service of maybe an angel workshop, and I can feel myself getting excited, and my head's going into it, and I'm getting into all the let's say outside in. So what I do is I give my mind a job. So I respect what it needs to do, but I'll give it a job. I'll say, okay, let's give your mind something to do. So sit down and read and make a list of all the things you need to do. I mean, sometimes I just give it the job of sitting down and contemplating. But, you know, there are times when I give it jobs to do, and that way I can just drop into my heart, because the heart is loving that the ego is getting all excited, but is aware that the ego just needs to have something to do to serve me, to serve the heart, to serve the higher purpose. I'd just like to say hello to April. Welcome. We've just started to share about the spiritual ego, and also wish Debra happy birthday. It's her birthday today. So Saxon.
Oh, happy birthday, Debra.
Thank you, April.
No
Don't
wonder
see
you
you.
look extra radiant today.
Thank you. Are you on video?
Can you guys see me?
Yeah, I can see.
Yes, yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing you on here. Maybe I have to expand my. I see you now.
Oh, perfect. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So Saxon's shared about the spiritual ego and how important it is to have the spiritual ego in our lives, and Lisa's also talked about how important it is too. So, and Debra came in on how the spiritual ego was sort of playing her life a bit last month, and then she's dropped more into her heart, and today it's her birthday. She's having a wonderful time. So if you want to share, or anybody else wants to share, what your thoughts are. I mean, the people can just join in and jump in, but as you've just joined us, let's share. April.
Well, you know, I think with our spiritual, you know, ego, I always come back to awareness. You know, just being aware of, you know, like I know it's been, you know, shared. The ego has a purpose, you know, but one of our biggest challenges is keeping the ego in balance. And I have found, for me, being in awareness, you know, if my ego kind of tries to come in and bring up, you know, whatever that it's, you know, it loves to do, just by dropping into the heart, just changes, it gives that needed shift to get the ego to kind of just, you know, set aside and, you know, keep it in balance. And, you know, that way I have found, for me, that's the way that I can utilize the ego in positive ways, you know, in the ways that we need it. We have it for a reason, right? So, you know, my experience is, you know, just being in awareness when it surfaces, maybe in a way that we would prefer it not to, or maybe is not as beneficial, you know, then just dropping into the heart and, you know, creating that shift makes all the difference, you know. But again, I believe the important part is really to be in awareness and to know when to, you know, drop into your heart to keep the balance. I mean, for me, I find that it's really that simple. Is it still a challenge sometimes? Absolutely. But it really is that simple. You know, just being in awareness and going to your heart is a big solution, big answer to a lot of things, you know, in this physical world. And
It's not easy though, is it? It's not always easy.
No, it's not always.
Sort of intellectually saying, you know, drop into the heart. But yeah, at the times when I am, you know, I get to a point where I just feel that, you know, this is just so hard. I do. There are times when, you know, things are coming at me, and I've had a real good roll, and I'm thinking, you know, yeah, life's wonderful. You have all these opportunities. Yes, there's all this stuff going around, and then something will grab me, and I find it really difficult. You know, I don't go out there. I'm not throwing it out there to the world. You know, I'm having a conversation with the angels and saying, for goodness sake, what would you have me do? You know, at times like that. And you know, it's not, you know, we're on this journey and we're looking at ourselves and we've chosen to do that. But there are plenty of people out there that that aren't able to just go into this heart. And I've been really grateful as I've gone along my journey throughout my life, and you know, for many, many years, and I've come across different people, and I needed some tools, some guidance, some things to help me on my journey, on the bridge from, you know, the ego that's giving me a conflict or an argument, that bridge, you know, to the heart. And I know we've all got our ways of doing this. You know, Saxon, you were showing me some beautiful beads earlier on. For me, that's a bridge. That's a bridge from, you know, it can take you from, for a moment, from your mind chatter, you know, that busyness when you've got 1,000 monkeys in there, to something else that actually helps you to connect into the divine. How do you work with that? How does that work with you?
Me?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Sorry. I think a lot of it also is trust and belief in yourself. If you don't have trust and belief in yourself that you can get out of these problems. I mean, I am an extremely strong-minded person, determined, and I've always believed in myself, and that has helped me a great deal in my life. And I think if you don't, it's very difficult, because you have this great strength inside of you that comes from our divine presence, which everybody has, regardless of whether they believe it or not. It's there. And this is the connection that is our heart connection. This is our connection to the universe, whoever we want to be connected, whether it's God, the divine, which is the same thing, of course, the angels, or divine goddess, whoever it is you like, or a religious figure. This is how we connect, through our heart, because it's our emotional place. And I know that the angels connect through our emotions. And when we get excited, which you were talking about through your ego, it is the doorway into receiving connection. It's the doorway. So excitement, passion, even fear and sadness, it's a way in. So nothing is excluded. So you don't have to be happy and calm and confident and all these wonderful things. You can get in through fear and I mean, I know people can't because they may be at a very low pace, but it is a way in, and it's our emotions that do it. So I would say that you have to build on this belief that you can, you know, because connecting with angels is extremely easy. But it takes work, it takes practice, it takes belief, it takes faith. And I mean, I can remember right at the beginning, when I first started in 2008, when I first actually knew what an angel was, and they came and spoke to me. It's like, who am I to get this? Who the hell am I? You know, I'm just this funny little person who doesn't even believe in angels. What are you doing talking to me? And I had to work really hard at it because I didn't believe. Excuse me, we've just got a message coming up. I'm just deleting it. It's confusing me. I get easily distracted. It's age, I think, and it goes straight out the mind. Anyway, so I had to work really hard at believing in myself, because I couldn't believe that I was getting all these really wonderful messages. And for a while, I wrote a book, and for a while, I thought, I can't tell people I speak with angels, because there's all these, all these people out there who are these wonderful, amazing people, and I'm not. I'm just a silly little person, And so I went through the book and I took out every example of an angel, took out everything. And I thought, this is ridiculous. So then I went and I had to put it all back in again, you know. It's kind of really silly. But, oh, that's nice. That's a nice picture of me. So, yeah, so I would say is how I do it, of course, is I do believe in myself now, but I've had to work at it. And I have faith in myself. But I started from that perspective when I was younger, you know, so for me, it's been a lot easier than maybe other people. But I find to get into this place of your heart, for me, again, it's practice. It is practice, and you cannot do it once. You have to do it over and over again. And whatever you do to get there is not wrong. There isn't a right and a wrong way. There is the way that's right for you. So I would just say, I've got all these lovely messages, and I just read one of them. And the fact that I'm reading this message doesn't have to be my message, of course, but the fact that you're reading a message that has come from this beloved place brings up this enormous love within you, and you can't help but be taken there. You don't necessarily stay there, but you can get there. And again, I think it is practice, passion, determination, devotion, dedication. That's how I do it.
I love, you bring up a really good point is, it's a practice in any of the spiritual journey things that we do, utilizing our tools, learning different tools, putting them, bringing them forth and really utilizing them. And again, it always brings me back to awareness. When we experience something, be in that awareness. It helps me to be in the awareness of, wow, that really works. And it helps build that trust in yourself, right?
Yeah.
And your connection with your guides, your higher self, your angels. I find myself sharing that a lot. If you're in awareness, try this and be aware. How does that work for you?
Yeah.
When it works, it gives you, that extra confidence. Wow, this really does work. I am connected. And I just really think it's really important. Everything that you said, do it more than once. It's a practice. And, this spiritual journey is to be, it's not easy. It really does take dedication. That's why, regardless of what we're doing to help us get there or stay there, it's a practice. And if I hear this one story, my first, well, not my first, but one of my experiences of connecting with the angels for the first time, in this way. There was a time in my life when everything was about angels. I mean, there was angels all over my house. I was just all about the angels, and I wanted to connect with my angels, in a way that was undoubtedly a true connection, right? So this was, gosh, I don't know, probably 30 years ago. And I was laying in my living room and I was reading this book called Ask Your Angels. And it was, giving you, ways to connect with your angels. I had all my lights off. I had all my candles on. I was really in the mood. I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. And as I get impatient, I was just like doing everything. And I wanted something really concrete, really, and finally I just shut the book and I said, can you just give me a sign that you're here? And I had this TV 2 feet away from me. It was off. The screen was black. And in all capital white letters, it came on the screen, on the top of the screen. Hi, April. It freaked me out. It was exactly what I was asking for, right? But I was like, oh my God. And I got up, I turned the lights on, I blew the candles out. I wasn't quite ready for what I was asking for, right? But it was a tangible sign, all capital white letters on this black TV screen. Hi, April. And, did that take me into awareness of what I was doing and how the connection was really working? Absolutely. So since then I've built on that. But, I like sharing, there's so many stories if we just believe and if we're aware and allow them to come in. They're everywhere. They happen every day. I mean, just really believing that they're hearing you and you're connected is a huge thing. I mean, I can't say that enough. Can I share one more story like that?
Yeah, sure.
That I think might, you know, is that okay?
Yeah.
You guys agree with this? So, and I share this again just to give an example of how easy it is to connect, you know, with whoever we want to connect to. So, and I'll give you the really short version. There was a time in my life that was it was a very difficult time. It was a very difficult time. And I was sitting in my car, and I just wanted to release and have the ugly cry, you know. I just really needed to release, and because I was strong, and I was tired of being strong, I needed to just release. And so I'm sitting in my car in this parking lot, and there's all kind of empty spots all around me. And like I said, I'm going for the ugly cry. It was not pretty, but crying from my gut. And I was crying. I said, you know, I could not have been more from the heart and in the moment. And, you know, I said, you know, Jesus, I wish you could just come down and give me a hug. And I felt his hug with every ounce of my being. But I really just envisioned him coming down in a physical form and giving me a hug in that moment. And all this happened, you know, very quickly. I noticed this Suburban. You know how big a Suburban is? Huge vehicle. Well, there was my car, an empty space, and then a car. And the empty parking spot was like this big, and the Suburban was this big. And this person was determined to get into that spot, right? And I'm looking going, can I not just have a moment for the ugly cry, you know? And this person finally made it into the parking spot, and I turned my back to my driver's window. So when they got out of the car, they couldn't see what was going on. And again, this all happened, you know, very quickly. And within, you know, 20 seconds of going, you know, Jesus, I really wish you could come down and give me a hug. And car comes in, I turn to my side, and the lady opens the door so aggressively, it bam hit my car, and my body just reacted. I turned around like this, and she looked at me, she went, oh honey, you need a hug. Like, really? And I just was like, wow. And she goes, no, sweetie, you need a hug. Get out, let me give you a hug. And in that moment, I literally got out of my car. She gave me the most beautiful hug. And I knew what that was. And she even said to her daughter, honey, come over here. This lady needs a hug. So here I am in this parking lot, two strangers just giving me hugs. And, you know, just being in awareness, knowing, you know, that my desire, my request, my prayer was literally answered in that moment. So I remember that, and it built upon that trust and that belief, you know, that we're talking about, instead of us letting it happen and go, oh, not making all the connections.
Yeah.
So I hope, you know, maybe those two little simple examples may be, you know, some encouraging, you know, to someone who may be, you know, with us, you know, today listening to this, to just be in awareness and enjoy it, make those connections, and remember how you did it, and just continue to do that.
Absolutely.
It's it is those moments that it's a very good point, and a good pointer for people that, you know, sometimes when we're going through those difficult, challenging times in our lives that come to us, and sometimes they come to us more and more, the more spiritually aware we become, the more we've devoted ourselves to dropping the ego, not dropping it in a way that it's bad, but not letting it be the boss, but it's the heart being the boss. And sometimes it's difficult because it's subtle, and the only way that we get the measurement that maybe it's out of balance, is when something happens that feels uncomfortable for us, you know, and there's some pain and conflict there until there isn't, you know. And as you say, the more we practice, the more we're able to drop into that place of calm, into and it is those moments, remembering back to those moments when, you know, although this is happening, and it doesn't feel like I'm connected at the moment, I know that if I do this, then I will feel that peace that I've felt, and I will be supported because I always have been in the past. So to have those, yeah, those what would you call them, timelines of angelic intervention is beautiful. Absolutely. And one thing that I'd like to say is that for me, the spiritual ego is showing me more and more, balancing a spirit and my ego is kind of coming up a way that I'm starting to forget a lot of the things that I've learned, but bringing into everything that I need in the moment. So it's in the moment, I'm being in the moment. And I just threw that in there because you know, I felt like it.
Flow with it,
Oh my
flow
gosh.
with it.
Funny.
Funny.
I'm reminded, Akushi and everyone, how much Reverend Kimberly really did in the angel ministry help us focus on what we were feeling at a time, and then in her way, as I remember it, really how to dive into that and say, hey, in this presence, in this awareness, in this knowing, this is what's going on for me, and help me, you know. And God bless Reverend Kimberly. She still brings so much to us. I'm also thinking about what I learned from a man named Robert Scheinfeld. He teaches busting loose from the money game and other programs like that will just blow open a person's concepts of who they are and what the world is in every single way. And you're back to just point blank, nothing. I'm in the field. That's what I am. I remember being in a room full of all kinds of metaphysicians and healers and teachers when I was hearing his teachings from someone else, and I could just hear brains go. People who were not new to the idea. The technique that was the center of all that was to say, I am the power and the presence of God creating this. Or you might say connected to the power and the presence of God creating this situation or this. And now I'm going blank because I kind of went into that zone. I'm the power and the presence of God creating this. And I dive into this situation as knowing myself as this aware being. Dive into it as much as you can. Dive in. And then I can't even, like I say, remember the whole rest of it, but that you reclaim your power and you pull your power back to you in that place. Just, here I am. This is what I did. Wow. Whatever that feels like, hate, pain, whatever. And then bring it back.
Perfect.
And I'm now creating this other thing, or what I want to create with all that power that I had somehow dispersed and displayed into my life. I keep thinking about another situation that, you know, I sang opera for many years. And I remember being in a workshop with Licia Albanese, who was a great diva at the Metropolitan Opera. She was maybe in her 80s at the time I met her. And she taught me many things, but one of them was how to dive into a character. So there I was, this person wanting to be cool and wanting to be me, and yet I had to play Tosca. And Tosca's this great diva, and and she sings all the time, all this stuff, and then she like drives off of the tower in suicide, and she does all this dramatic stuff that I had always really tried to put a handle on myself and never ever be. As we all know, that's changed, but but I was just pretty shocked. But she started to show me. She would sing in her 80s with this voice. She would sing Vici Date, and as she started to sing, she became you felt the force of this entire being. She became that character, fully present in her body, that diva, that prima, or whatever it is. And it was such a, whatever it was that character had to offer. But the force of, and then being able to let go and know that that's just something I was being for a minute as an actress, as a singer. It was phenomenal. I don't think I could have learned any of that if she hadn't shown me with her presence and by doing it. But can you feel it?
Yeah.
That zip. It's just like, and then let go.
Let go.
It's a great activator. I really think it's a great way to activate your passion, activate wherever you're at, and then just reclaim your power and your love. And of course, angels have a clear path away from whatever, you know, we might be experiencing at the moment, and feel our power. Crazy story again. Sorry.
No, I think that can I jump in? I think one of the key themes throughout all of our shares today has been that the power of emotions, and how the power of emotions, I mean, there's not one emotion that starts in the mind, it starts here. Okay, and that's where the angels come through with their emotions, is through our hearts. And the more that we practice with our hearts, so a couple of key points that came up today was about the practice. And so I'm going to bring in my spiritual scientist background here, because this is I'm a scientist at heart. But the more that we practice regulating the emotions, so we have depleting and renewing emotions, but the more that we practice, it creates a neural pathway to the mind, where that becomes the internal baseline, then that becomes the normal. So in, you know, research, NASA, everyone says 21 to 42 days in a straight practice of just heart focused breathing, or whatever it is, prayer, meditation, whatever your bridge is, that creates that neural pathway that becomes your internal baseline, that your mind, guess what, wants to go there when situations throw you off balance, or they are not in alignment with source. And so it's a powerful, I mean, and you can read all the masters, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, they all talk about the power of emotions. However, the practice is so key into regulating the emotions and creating those new neural circuitries throughout being human, because we are human and we're going to get caught off balance because we're such sensory beings, you know, feel, touch. We don't have any of those senses when we go into light. And so those senses almost they can either become a distraction or an attraction for us. And so the more that we practice the attraction of using those sensory neural pathways that we have, the more that we can reprogram being that our systems as human. And the other thing that I wanted to share too is about coming back to our main topic today of ego, is that it's also important, and what I have learned and what I have watched others who become like this with their ego, whether it's spiritually, whatever ego, whatever discipline they are teaching or putting out into the world, is that others feed into that ego. So yesterday I did a reading for a woman who I actually saw her ego and others clamping onto it and feeding it and making it larger and larger and larger. And so we really had to take off the clamps of the ego to get her back into herself, because things were being fed into her ego. So for me, how I keep that from happening, because when more that people come to me for readings and things, they say, oh my gosh, Lisa, you know, and I'm like, whoa, you have this power too. And here's my story. And I always come back to vulnerability. I think vulnerability is one of the keys to making sure that our ego doesn't keep going like this.
Yeah.
That we come back into the reality that, hey, I'm human and sometimes I can't get out of bed because I'm going to just cry, or I'm just going to go through the emotions until I get back into balance. And sometimes I have to go into those vulnerable points. But I find that the more that I'm vulnerable and share with people my real story of being down with nothing and rising to the top, and being down with nothing and rising to the top, because that's what life is. Nothing remains constant. They stop feeding my ego, okay? Because then they become aligned with my true self, my essence of who I am, because I don't want people feeding this, oh my gosh, Lisa. You know, I want people to see the real me that falls down and gets back up again, and falls down and gets back up again, because that's life. You know, we can't live in the blissful clouds of everything, because that's draining too. We can't be up there because it's not real. We have to walk this earth walk too. So that's just a couple of things I wanted to bring back into about the power of emotions and practice, and then just that feeding the ego from that we don't even realize that other people are doing, but our ego does. Oh man, it just loves it. It's like a magnet. It's like boom, boom. Yeah. So that's what I just wanted to share before we ended today, because all of your comments, I mean, look, I've got pages of learnings from all of you today with the comments that you've made and everything, so that I can integrate into my life and make it more, I like, April, that you said, I think that's so the power of awareness too, you know, become more aware of the filters and what's coming in that feeds ego, or that I can manage through my heart, through practicing being in my heart more than up here. It likes to spin. Oh,
Wonderful.
so I'm complete.
It's a wonderful note to nearly end on, is the vulnerability, and how we all come down and rise up. And there's that bit in the middle, the bridge in the middle. And I thought what would be really wonderful way of ending today is, I thought I might light a little candle, and then if Debra, you'd like to make a wish, and a birthday wish, I'll just go and get the candle.
To make a wish for us in this situation. There's a wish. I wish to go outside, I wish to be fed, and I wish whoever that is to get out of my yard. Is that what he's thinking? That's not my wish.
I
That
think
seems
she's
like
saying
what
there's
he's
a
up
man
to.
at the door.
Oh,
Woo!
well, are we wishing? You better check.
Oh, how cute.
Here we are.
Oh, I love
If you'd like
it.
to make a wish, and then we'll all blow it out together. Or maybe a birthday prayer and a wish. That would be lovely.
I'm just going to say, I pray and I wish and I invite the manifestation that we each and all become more and more of who we truly are. Enjoy our vehicles, our pathways, our experiences, and remember who we are to the fullest. Thank you for sharing my birthday with me. And Akushi, would you blow that out for me?
Happy birthday, Debra.
Thank you, everyone. You're all just glorious. But not in an ego way. But I like your egos too. But you're just glorious divine beings. I love you.
Thank you, everybody, again for joining the Flowing with the Spiritual Cafe. And does anybody want to throw anything else in here for next week's topic, or shall we just message, and maybe somebody out there has a question and they may come in and we could talk about it. Anyway, until next week, have a lovely week.
Thanks. You too. Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.